everyone on Outside Dirt. This is Karen Benner with the Building Better with Karen show. And I'm so excited today to bring my guest to you, Nicole Tysvaer with Symbi Homes. Symbi is a builder based in the DC market in the Maryland suburbs. And I had spent a significant portion of my career in the DC market. And Nicole and I tended to run in the same circles. I knew about the great work that she and her team were doing for many years. We never really had much of an opportunity to connect. And then lo and behold, almost a year ago, she and I both ended up both participating in a volunteer working group of folks in the home building industry based all over the country, actually internationally as well. We're participating in a Green Builder Media working group focused on creating an ESG framework for the home building industry, which is very exciting. You all should check that out. But it caused me to remember Nicole, to be reconnected with her, and to remember that they always did projects that I was very interested in. And so I started following all of their social media channels and got even more excited about the things they're doing, new construction, renovations. They are participating in helping with the Workforce Development Challenge, thinking about the Inflation Reduction Act and how that's going to bring more business to all of us. So I had to get her on the show. And so Nicole, thank you so much for being here. And I would love for you to give our audience just a background. Because I don't know this about you either. What is your background that got you into high performance home building? And give us an overview of the journey of where you've been and how you got to where you are today.
All right. Well, thank you so much for having me, Karen. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk to you. And also, I love your work and what you've been doing for decades now. You're a real trailblazer, and I really appreciate you. So thank you for having me. You asked about my background. So it's a bit of an odd background. I was about 12 or so years ago, I was finishing my PhD in education and from the University of Michigan, and I was building a house for my family at the same time. So I was writing all day, and then whenever I had a chance, I would go to the house and I was trying to run the project as best as I could. Well, I had a project manager, but I wanted to be the project manager. You know, I was one of those homeowners, you know. And it was such a wonderful experience that when the build was done, I decided I wanted to shift from academia to construction.
Oh, wow.
So I teamed up with my project manager and our architect, and the following year we started building homes. But what's interesting about it is I've always been a very mission-oriented person. So I didn't jump into it just to build things, which is super cool, right? Watching things come out of the ground. But I also wanted to change the way people build, because I realized that, you know, really we could do better in terms of sustainability and in terms of energy efficiency. Everything was so expensive, even LED lights back then. So I thought, well, hey, I want to jump into this. I want to try to become the best builder I can. And then I want to help try to other people, lead them in the direction of building better high performance homes.
Awesome. What a great story. What a shift. I would imagine though that your skill set in academia and research in training and research and problem solving has served you very well in construction management and in this industry.
Yeah, people ask me all the time, they're like, oh, so you're not using your degree? And I'm like, no, I have all the capacity, the brain capacity that I earned, you know, during that degree. I'm not running like regression analyses anymore, no. But I still write. Every project to me is a case study. So I'm constantly studying what we're doing and then trying to package that information in a way that will be useful for other people so that they can learn these methods too.
Yeah, and you're doing an excellent job of that. We're definitely going to touch on that today, that you've got so much great content out there recording and sharing what you're doing for others, which is awesome. That's such a big part of, I think, what helps to push our industry to innovate is sharing with each other and, you know, lessons learned, what worked, what didn't. So you're definitely using those skill sets. Before we move on, I'm going to read straight up what came out of one of the articles that was written about your project. And I just want to share with everybody in the audience this overview. Symbi takes a symbiotic, hence the name Symbi Homes, approach to construction according to Tysvaer. Projects are made to be mutually beneficial to people and the planet, ensuring the elements of wellness, efficiency, and sustainability are met for both inhabitants and habitat. And I love that. I just absolutely love that. And then later on in the article, you were quoted as saying, building sustainable homes is just as much about sustaining the health and wellness of people, the inhabitants of our built environment, as it is about sustaining the health of our planet. And love that as well. So, you know, the people and planet part is a big part of what I love to feature on this show. So thank you for the background. And as I mentioned earlier, for our audience, you all have been working both in new construction and in renovations and retrofits. And the projects that you have done and that are featured on your website, anybody can go and check out more about those. But the one that I was really excited to talk with you about today is the Regeneration House, which was ProBuilder Magazine's Model Remodel 2022 Project of the Year. So lots of great content out there for folks to get into more details beyond what we're able to cover in our interview today. But I would love for you to give an overview of that project for our audience. What are you most excited to talk about with everybody?
Yeah, so Regeneration House was, well, it is one of our crowning achievements, I think, for so many reasons. The first thing is that the homeowners in the house, it was an elderly couple, and they were aging out of the space, and the shower was upstairs. The stairs were really steep. It was this 2-story 19th century Victorian. It was at the point where it needed a lot of work, and they didn't have the resources to get the work done. So, and they also happen to be friends of ours. So we purchased the home from them, and then we built them an ADU on the back, an age in place, super energy efficient, actually net positive with a big solar array.
Amazing.
Yeah, all one level, one bedroom, one full bathroom. And actually you can see behind me, this is a picture of their kitchen, living, dining space, lots of big windows, lots of light. Just a very safe and comfortable place for them that they can live in perpetuity. We gave them a lease in perpetuity for practically nothing. And so they were able to stay in their community, the community that they loved, even though, you know, the whole area around there, that's Hyattsville, Maryland, has been gentrifying like mad, and the prices have been going up and up and up. We came up with the solution where they could stay forever. And then the older part of the house, the old Victorian, we did a deep energy retrofit on that. We added air sealing and insulation, new appliances. We took out all the old radiators, replaced them with super efficient heat pumps. And then we were able to actually rent out that space as well.
Okay.
So, yeah, so we have it's a 2-family now, and it's going really well, actually. It's amazing.
Yeah, that was actually one of the questions that I was going to ask, was if you had ended up moving into the original home, or if you had sold that or rented it. So that's great that you have another family in there. So again, there's so much that we could get into on this project from a technical aspect, and it's hard to pick and choose what we want to talk about today. But one of the items that I had noticed in reading about it in advance was the humidistat-controlled ERV in the ADU. And I would just love maybe a quick synopsis of, you know, how you chose to go with that, what product you put in there, how that's working. And honestly, you know, we're recording this in July of 2023, and both the DC area and where I live currently in Pittsburgh, we just recently experienced significant poor air quality days from some wildfires from our neighbors from the north. And I'm curious if how you educate your clients on, you know, turning off the ERV when there's bad outdoor air quality, you know, how that conversation goes. So maybe we can just talk about that one feature for a few minutes.
Yeah, so ventilation is so important, right? Especially when you're building a super uber tight house, right? And if we want the air to be super clean, you know, the gentleman who lives there has some health issues, some lung issues. And so for us, it's like we have to have super clean, pure air. So
Yeah.
it's actually, there's two components to the system. One is the ERV, which is up in the loft space there with connected to the air handler so that it can move some air around. Good question about how, you know, when to turn it off. It's on its own sort of timer, and it can register humidity outside and shut itself down on the most, you know, humid, hot days.
Sure.
But the air smog is a different question. So that's something I'd have to do some more research on and get back to you.
Okay.
You know, so, but very, very good question. And then, but the second part of it is a humidistat-controlled bath fan. So
Yeah.
that thing is always registering the humidity in the space. And, you know, most of the time the door is open to the bathroom. And so it can take the stale air out, just like the ERV does, but it's another point of contact that kind of just runs when it needs to. And it's constantly taking the stale out. The other component we have for clean air is a floor mounted mini split in the great room. And I absolutely love these things because one, it can, in the wintertime, it can take cold air off the floor because it's floor mounted. Yeah. So we have this concrete floor in there, right? That was one of the ways we sort of tried to save some money, but it also looks cool.
Yeah.
So take that cool air off the floor. And these mini splits, the Mitsubishi mini splits in particular, have like 4 filters in there. So it's constantly filtering the air and coming back out. Now, the caveat, I suppose, to that is that you have to constantly clean these filters. They're, you know, they're washable, but they actually recommend, Mitsubishi recommends every 2 weeks.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, taking them out, washing them, and then vacuuming out the inside. Now, I mean, I think most of our clients don't do it every 2 weeks, maybe once a month, but still, that's how you get the best benefit out of that constant filtration that's happening.
Wow. Yeah, I think this is actually the first time I'm learning about a floor mounted mini split. That's very interesting.
They are fairly new. And I think that, you know, they work well when there's homes that have radiators before, because you already have that space dedicated.
Yeah.
To floor, but we're finding in this case, it was a great application as well.
Yeah. And so are we in the image as your background, is that actually the mechanical room? And are we seeing some equipment through that detail?
Up here is
the
mechanical room. It's kind of far back. It's a little hard to see, but that's where we have the one air handler that's in the space. And the ERV is up there. Those are ducted down to the bathroom and the kitchen and the hall back here. And then for this big room that you're looking at, there's the floor mounted unit.
Okay, cool. That's a very attractive mechanical room.
I know. It's hard to get up there though. They have we keep saying we're going to get a library ladder, but right now you just put this tall, skinny ladder up there and yeah.
Okay, I was wondering about that. If you literally crawl through that little space, that's awesome. Very cool. And then as far as the retrofit, let's talk about that a little bit. One of the things that jumped out at me from one of the articles was your encapsulation process when you were dealing with the lead paint on the siding. And, you know, you all were obviously very motivated to ensure that that process was done in a way that was healthy for the workers and folks in the neighborhood. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so we had to make a decision. Were we going to remove all of the paint from the exterior, because it was in pretty bad shape, right? Do we remove it all, sand it down to the wood and start over, but then risk releasing a lot of lead toxins into the air and having to do a proper remediation procedure, which is very expensive and timely and doesn't guarantee that you're not getting any lead into the soil, you know? Or do we do some like basically a minimalist approach to removing only the chips that are hanging, right? And trying, you know, protecting the soil to the best of our ability, just power wash, only the chips that are hanging, and then we sealed everything else. We basically encapsulated it with a Sherwin-Williams product that just adheres everything to the wood. And so, and then after that, we primed and we painted. So if you look close, it's got that more aged sort of look. Yeah, you know, the shabby chic a little bit. I mean, step back, I think that the paint job is beautiful. If you go close, you can see kind of some of the texture of the old paint that's still underneath there. But that was, again, like I said, a very conscious decision on our part.
Yeah. And this project was completed a few years ago now, right? Or 2 years maybe?
We started, okay, we're in 23. Yeah. So they, trying to remember now. Yeah, it was most of 2022 that we did.
Okay. Okay. So you're basically in year 1 of seeing how that siding application is going to wear and look over time.
Right.
Interesting. What a great solution, or, you know, alternative. As you said, I've heard so many folks talk about the challenge of the full scale remediation requirements. So this sounds like a great alternative. Do you remember what the Sherwin-Williams product was that you used?
I think it's called Sherwin-Williams Bonding Primer.
Okay.
But cool. I have a blog about that, so we can share it with the listeners afterwards. I can share.
Great. Yeah. Again, if I didn't already say it, Nicole has done an excellent job of blogging throughout the entire process, because this was, you know, sponsored, I guess, with Pro Builder magazine. There was just a constant output of education throughout the entire process of this home's construction, and we all benefit from being able to go back and read all of these nitty gritty details. So I'm going to let you tell everybody what I read about the HERS score of this house when you started, and then the HERS score that you were targeting, what your goal was, and the score that you ended up with, because they're 3 pretty amazing numbers. Hopefully you remember them. If you don't, I've got them right in front of me.
Yeah, I don't know if I remember the exact numbers, but I know the gist of it, right? So when we started, the original Victorian had a HERS score that was off the charts, like well over 100, right? We had
188 is what I read.
Yeah.
188, yeah.
Yeah, and we had air changes per hour were about 19, I think, or something like that. And so then afterwards, the final HERS score for the ADU is I think in more of like almost 0, right, category. I mean, it's a net positive house and how tight it is and everything, you know. Combined together, if you average across the two, I think you're getting more to like an 80 or something HERS score overall. But the good news is, this is what blows me away too. We, for air sealing and insulation on the Victorian, we only focused on the cellar, the basement, the foundation, and the attic space. And we left the attic vented too, for a lot of reasons we can totally dig in and talk about. But yeah, so we focused on those 2 areas. We did not drill and fill the walls. We did not try to do any exterior rigid insulation. Because it's a historic property, we couldn't change the windows. Although we could have worked on air sealing the windows better, but that was just a cost consideration. So we didn't do that. So just by doing the basement and the attic and doing a really good job of air sealing and insulation, those 2, we reduced air infiltration by 50%. Our HERS score afterwards was about a 9. So we cut it in half, basically. Yeah.
That's amazing. And again, you have a great, at least one great blog and lots of great photos of the process of the attic that you just described. And I'm sure you probably have one for the basement work as well. I just didn't see that one, but the process for the attic was pretty impressive. Can you quickly touch on what the reasons were that you decided to stay with a vented attic?
Yeah, I mean, well, the number one reason is it's been vented for over 100 years and it's worked very well for the house, right? So, so we felt like it was functioning well and we didn't want to change that. The second reason is we've seen a lot of homes now where they go in and they spray foam the underside of the roof deck, and you end up with humidity and mold problems. I see it over and over and over again. And that's really scary. So we didn't even want to attempt to do that. Plus, it's way more expensive than the blown in, right?
Yeah.
And so for us, we felt like we were going to get the best performance and, over the long term, especially if we just focus blown in on the attic floor and then sealing every single penetration that's coming from the second floor up to the attic. And it's including like the top plate, right? All the way around.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I love that that was your answer about, at least the part about the, this tendency that we have to assume that we definitely need to go in and spray these attics and get them, turn them into unvented spaces, and then the problems that occur later, because I think, as you said, it's occurring a lot very early in my green building journey of education. I remember going to a 2-day course to earn one of the, I think it was the certified green professional certification back in like 2006. And I remember the instructor showing all of these photos, these awful photos of homes where insulation contractors had gone into, knocked on doors, promised that they were going to reduce people's energy bills, spray everywhere. And then this instructor was, called in later as a consultant to deal with tremendous mold and deterioration issues. And that those images were burned in my brain that, the struggle over to vent or not to vent an attic space is definitely a risk factor to be considered. So I'm glad that you all went the route that you did. That's exciting to hear. And you still made such an impact. I mean, you still had excellent results on that deep energy retrofit.
Yep, absolutely.
Great. And then there's a 6.8 kilowatt solar array on the project. Is that correct? Is that all on the Victorian? Is that on the ADU? Is it spread out over both?
The panels themselves are all on the ADU roof. That's the area that has the best sun for us. But they share the benefit of it. There's one electric panel for the entire building. And so they both share the benefit. And we do, on some of the sunniest days, we do get to a net positive, which is like fun to see on my app. I have the utility app, and you can see if it goes green, you're actually doing the net metering and you're selling energy back to the grid. So
yeah. Oh yeah, that sounds exciting. Cool. All right. Well, again, we could talk about this amazing Regeneration House project forever, and there's so much content out there that folks can go read more about it. I would like to ask for you to talk a little bit about what I mentioned at the beginning, that I know that you all have done some training recently to help other renovation contractors know how to do some of the work that you're doing, that you're sharing information, helping to advance our industry, which is awesome. And you also recently wrote a blog about the Inflation Reduction Act and how that is going to create more demand and opportunities for a workforce to, provide these services. So can you give us some more details about how Symbi is involved in the training and development of our clean energy careers?
Yeah, no, it's exciting because we're starting to see the demand, starting to swell for these kinds of upgrades to homes, which is super, super exciting. But it's also terrifying too, right? Because if you don't do a good job, people, like we said, we were talking about before, people can end up in a worse place than when you started. So we do really believe that education is key to getting all this wonderful IRA incentives out the door. So the DC government in particular, they have a program, a free program called DC Train Green, where people can learn green construction trades and gain new knowledge. And they hired myself and my partner, Matt Culp, to do a webinar called Resilient Remodeling. So it's a 90-minute webinar, and it really is just an introduction, but it has lots of, I think, good information, links, and different points you to different directions. It's designed for general contractors who have been doing this work for a while, of renovating homes, but haven't necessarily gone towards the building science or high performance outcomes. You know, I always like to say that, like, I think the weatherization people have lived over here for a long time, and then the remodelers have lived over here for a long time. And it's just now I feel like the two communities are really coming together. So, for example, we are starting to use a blower door test throughout our building process. This is a new thing for us.
Oh,
but it makes
interesting.
perfect sense. Yeah, right. So it used to be that we would we'd do a blower door maybe at the beginning and the end of a project to see how well we sealed it up. And you know, and I went to the Home Performance Conference in Seattle last year, and I started going to all these sessions, and I was like, why don't I have my own blower door so I could test at certain different strategic time points throughout the build and not wait till the very end and cross my fingers, you know, and hope we get the results we want. So things like that, we're trying to help people understand how they can use tools, and, you know, in diagnostics, and, you know, also with the duct testing too, throughout the building process, and really to come up with, you know, a better product overall in the end.
Yeah. What a great idea. So how is that going for you? So you all invested in a blower door set, and you trained yourselves on how to operate and do your own blower door, or are you calling your consultant to come back out additional times? What's that look like?
So it's been kind of a phased approach. I did, it didn't happen overnight, that's for sure. So I became a building analyst certified, right?
Okay.
So I'm taking all the courses, and I just took another course on duct testing and infiltration, and I have another retrofit course coming up. So taking all this coursework, but then also working really closely with my the Green Raider I've been working with for years, Kelly Gillespie of Kelly Green Raiders in Virginia. She's absolutely brilliant. She's been doing this forever. And so we started just going out together and doing all the testing together. And she's basically given me all the hands-on, you know, training that I need. And yes, we have our own equipment coming. It's en route. I understand it's going to be arriving any day, but yeah, that's basically where we are. And we do a lot of consulting now. So if there's a client who says, I have clients who have a mold problem, or a client who just moved in a house and they know it's really old and it's got a lot of issues, they can't sort it out. And so Kelly and I will go in together. We do the diagnostic and we do the testing, and we write a report, but then I create a scope of work, and I bring in all the different contractors. I don't serve as a general contractor, but I connect them to the resources, and I provide some oversight so that, you know, they can get these upgrades done, basically.
And they are homeowners.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I wanted to be sure that we talked about that today too, that you've got this new kind of niche of your business for the consulting. And what is the name of it?
It's called Symbify. It's a play on Symbi homes. Yeah.
Yes, I love it. That's great. I've had as things like the IRA become more, the Inflation Reduction Act becomes more of what I hope to be a, you know, dining room table conversation for folks, and they want to start to do these things. I do think that there's a tremendous need for exactly the service that you just described, you know, not the full on, you're going to hire me as a GC and I'm going to, you know, tack on all of the overhead to that. And I'm going to be, you know, managing, you know, many more retrofits, but just to be almost like a Sherpa to existing homeowners to help them navigate it, give them the confidence, help them vet contractors and negotiate that whole process. So that's really exciting that you all are doing that.
Yeah, well, for me, I realized like I can work with so many more families if I'm consulting, as opposed to, you know, one project at a time where, you know, I'm there all day long, you know, babysitting contractors.
Yeah.
But instead, like, you know, really just try to set everybody up for success and be the Sherpa, the consultant that leads them through it. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I love it. It definitely an opportunity to add to both quality and quantity at the same time. Awesome. Is there anything else about training or development or any other partnerships that you have on that front?
Oh, yeah. Well, the retrofit lab. Have I told you about the retrofit lab? That's another
No.
project we're trying to get off the ground now. So it occurred to me a couple of years ago, I was doing work with this nonprofit called the Net Zero Energy Coalition here in
Okay.
DC. And we were putting on this big event where we were showcasing, it was called The Beauty of Zero. All kinds of different residential, commercial homes and projects and equipment too. It was like a museum type exhibit. And I learned about this. It was a testing center in Gaithersburg that the National Institute of Standards and Technology, NIST, part of the US government, they have this net zero home where they test out all this cool stuff all the time. And, you know, before the pandemic, they used to have a lot of visitors there and stuff. And I thought, that's so cool, but why is that not located in neighborhoods? Like, couldn't we do that in a neighborhood and have like a testing center and then invite neighbors in, you know, so they can learn, and also contractors so they could do training. And so I came up with this concept called the retrofit lab, which I've been sort of incubating for a while now, but we're actually starting to fundraise for it. And the idea is that we take a home that needs to be renovated, a fixer-upper, and we open up the whole project to the community so they can come in at different time points, and we'll do education and training of contractors, and we'll get manufacturers involved, and we'll do our virtual components as well, our social media. But from start to finish, they'll see the whole process, and then they can become more familiar with the technology, the costs, the benefits associated with it, and then hopefully motivate more people to do this kind of work. Yeah. So we're planning to pilot Retrofit Lab in DC next year. But
awesome.
Yeah, right now we're fundraising for the project.
Do you already know what location in DC it will occur? Do you actually have a site picked out?
We don't have, we've been looking at a lot of houses, but we're looking in like market rate neighborhoods, because we really want to be, in an area where there's a lot of similar homes. So it'll be easy to replicate the strategy. And also a lot of people who are already maybe thinking about renovation, and they can add on these upgrades, right?
Yeah, yeah. Oh, that's awesome. Girl, I guarantee that you are using your background in academia in your current profession. Anybody that's telling you you're not using your degree definitely needs to pay closer attention, because the education is definitely a high priority for you. It's clear. So that's awesome. Okay, then let's talk about your new project also coming up that you shared with me just before our interview today, which looks amazing. Queen of Zero is the name of the project. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so I'm super excited to be working on this project. It's a Queen Anne Victorian style home that's being built from the ground up, that is going to be net zero. And the story goes that there was an old 100-year-old Victorian just outside DC that burned down tragically like 3 years ago. And the homeowner decided, right after the tragedy, he said, we're going to rebuild an exact replica of what was there, basically. Wow. He wanted to build his Victorian again. And so he reached out to me to talk about his number one concern was resiliency, as you can imagine, right? He wanted to build a house that was never going to ever burn down. He wanted to build a house that would be around for the next 200 years, not just 100 years. And he's also very concerned about, being as efficient as possible, not just because of climate change, but because he really sees the writing on the wall when it comes to utility costs. Yep. Going up, they're getting like, it's crazy. I just heard a quote today that the gas prices are going to go, in some areas will increase 500% over the next several years.
Oh, wow.
It's coming, right? And all the pipes need to be replaced and all this stuff. So he basically asked me, like, how can we make this as sustainable as possible? And we've had, and it's been great because we're adding Tesla solar shingles on the roof. We couldn't do panels really and get enough wattage because, a Victorian has all of these funky leakages, in the spire. So we went with Tesla solar shingles, which is going to be wonderful. He's got Tesla power walls back up. A span panel to help manage the loads. It's going to be SIPS construction, so structurally insulated panels built off-site and then ship flat. Yeah, and lots of other upgrades, but we're super excited. We're breaking ground next month, actually, on that project. And I should mention that it's a case study for the Journal of Light Construction. So I'm now on the editorial staff with JLC, and we'll be writing articles and providing content every month.
Yeah. Yeah. And that is especially what was exciting when you shared, the story with me, or the project with me, that it looks like it's going to be another opportunity for you to continue to put out, constant blogs and updates that you can share with everybody, and continue to showcase materials and products and technologies. And what an awesome client. I mean, that's the kind of client that we all want to be working for, right? That's amazing. Is there anything about the structural insulated panels that you want to, share more details about today? I know that my understanding anyway, in looking through some of your portfolio, is that tends to be your choice of how to, complete a building envelope. Anything you want to share about that?
Yeah, well, I mean, we first of all love the concept of offsite construction, and even modular building, panelized systems that are built in a factory. But every time we price it out for us, when we're doing custom projects, it just seems to be more cost effective to go with the SIPS panels. So, two sheets of OSB sandwiched, with EPS in the middle. They're all cut perfectly in a factory to fit, and then they are installed like a jigsaw puzzle. We think we get really, we know we get really good performance out of them. And, also from a cost perspective, it's actually really come down in price relative to stick construction. So it's not that hard of a sale anymore. I think it's like, you're adding 1 or 2% to the total construction costs to use the SIPS panels.
Yeah. And that, 1 or 2% is, I imagine your return on that happens pretty quickly with all of the, the overall efficiency that you're creating.
Yeah.
Very cool. Do you find that, I imagine at this point, Symbi has great partner relationships with contractors, with crews, and it may no longer be an issue for you. Was finding framers that were familiar with SIPs and, comfortable and able to execute that well, was that a significant learning curve in the beginning?
Well, it is very important to have SIPS expertise on site. So if your crew itself is not familiar with the product, then you can bring in a consultant to oversee and train the crew. Usually all the SIPS manufacturers will have consultants, either that they're part of their staff or somebody that they can refer you to. But yeah, I've heard many a horror story of people who think that a normal framing crew can do a SIPS project, and that's just absolutely not true.
Yeah. I mean, the training of all of this, all of these sophisticated and more innovative products and materials, the installation is where the breakdown tends to happen. And so it's so important to make sure that we're hiring folks that are trained or have that support on site. So great observation.
For sure.
Nicole, I am very excited to have reconnected with you. I'll give a shout out to Green Builder Media and the ESG working group for bringing us together again, so that I got a chance to finally connect with Nicole after all of these years and bring you on the show. And very excited to follow the journey of Queen of Zero and Symbi Homes and Symbify and everything that you're doing. Very, very grateful for what you're doing as a pioneer in our industry as well.
Well, likewise to you, Karen, for sure. And thank you so much for the opportunity to talk.
Yeah, absolutely. And all of you on Offsite Dirt, we'll see you again soon. Have a great day.